The existential threat posed by climate change remains the biggest concern for the new Tuvalu government. The government wants to better inform the people about the contents of a treaty with Australia, and its leader is firm that the country is not getting into bed with Beijing. These are some of the matters discussed in an expansive interview Don Wiseman had with the newly elected Tuvalu Prime Minister, Feleti Teo.
You've spoken of your concerns with the Whalapili Treaty with Australia. What is it you want to change about that treaty?
I think it was the manner in which the treaty was discussed. There was hardly any public consultations at all, despite the fact that this is a significant landmark arrangement between the two countries. So when the whole thing was announced as being signed in Rarotonga at the margins of the Forum Leaders meeting last year, everybody were taken by surprise. And that's why my new administration has committed to is to embark on an educational program informing the countries about the content of the treaty, what implication it has on the people of Tuvalu and the country's obligation under the treaty. So we'll do that shortly.
All right. Are there things in it you'd change?
Well, I mean, there is a provision in one of the paragraphs in the treaty, and that relates to security arrangement. And I think the text of the formulation that gives the appearance of encroaching on Tuvalu's integrity was the requirement for Tuvalu and Australia to mutually agree, for Tuvalu to undertake discussions with other parties concerning security arrangement. And I think the phrase mutually agree kind of give the appearance that Tuvalu is conceding its sovereign right to decide on its own to Australia.
So do you think they are?
No, I don't think they are. Because, Don, if you read the entirety of the treaty, assurances of Tuvalu's sovereignty is written all over the treaty. And there are also safeguards in the treaty frameworks that allow Tuvalu to pull the plug and get out of the treaty if it appears to Tuvalu that its sovereignty, the integrity of its sovereignty has been undermined by the treaty arrangement. So I encourage people to read the whole treaty rather than just focusing on that provision of the treaty that gives that appearance. And what I've been talking to the Australian official is that we will look into some arrangement, stop short of revising the treaty, if possible, that guaranteed and assured the integrity of the sovereignty of Tuvalu in this arrangement.
The other well-publicised issue going into the election was Tuvalu's relationship with Taiwan. Is that under threat at all from your administration?
No, and it was never an issue during the election. Don, I keep on telling the media outside of Tuvalu that I have far more immediate and pressing development challenges than to waste our efforts in engaging in the two-China discourse. I have to attend to improving the quality of our health services in Tuvalu, educational services. We have chronic shipping challenges and air services, connectivities. These are more pressing and immediate challenges that we need to focus and mobilize all available resources to address those challenges. Of course, those challenges are being compounded and further complicated by the impact of climate change and sea level rise.
Well, I'll come back to some of those challenges in a minute, but have there been any approaches by Beijing?
Not that I'm aware of.
These questions come up, of course, because of the activities of Beijing within the region over the last 3 or 4 years and the way that allies of Taiwan have changed course. That's the reason that people ask questions about Tuvalu. That's all, I think.
Yep, fair enough.
So no approaches from Beijing.
Well, as being Prime Minister for the last 2 weeks, there hasn't been, not that I'm aware of.
In terms of these challenges, and a big one is transport, how do you overcome that? Lots of much larger countries are battling similar sorts of issues. So how do you improve air links and shipping links?
Well, we're committed to undertake a proper and thorough review of these services, identify the extent of our needs, shipping needs, our air services need, and then develop appropriate remedial actions that will address those ones. I don't have the answer right now, but I'm hoping that we will shortly have the right technical people to give us options. Appointed a very strong minister to look after that portfolio, and I expect him to deliver on those challenges.
You would be looking for a significant donor aid to help out there.
obviously, we also have to utilize the current shipping lines. It's an issue that cuts across the region. And I think the solution may not rest squarely on Tuvalu. We might have to collaborate with other neighboring countries and come up with some shared services.
Now, for many years, Tuvalu has been at the forefront of the fears about the impact of climate change. What are your government's plans specifically to try and cope, try and mitigate? What are you going to do?
Well, we made it our top priority of the list of priorities that we have identified and announced during our inauguration and formation of the new government. We will certainly continue the very good work former administration has done in terms of the advocacy of the special case of Tuvalu. So we'll continue to make those noises. Hopefully, we will attract donors to assist us. There is a major coastal adaptation programs. We've been building and reclaiming land and protecting our coastline from the tidal surges. Last month, Don, we had the highest tide, king tide season in Tuvalu. And it was very sad to watch our coastline being devastated by tidal surges. And unfortunately, the forecasts are not very bright for Tuvalu. And they said that in 2050, half of the island of Funafuti will be regularly flooded by routine tidal surges. And in another 50 years after that, 90% of the island Funafuti will be flooded regularly by tidal surges. So it's not a bright forecast for us. So we're trying to adapt and build up our land areas so that they will be able to resist the impact of sea level rise, but not an easy task.
No, so you're using material out of the sea to build up with. I guess there's not much else you can use.
That's right. Yeah, and we've had technical people to undertake environmental impact assessment.
There's been some discussion of Tuvalu wanting to ensure that if its islands disappeared under the water, that the country would still retain its exclusive economic zone because it's incredibly valuable because of fish stocks and things like that. Is more progress being made on that? Is that something your government would focus on?
Absolutely. The Parliament of Tuvalu, before its dissolution last year, were able to bring into effect a new constitution. And in that constitution, it recognized the existence of Tuvalu as a state into perpetuity in the event that it loses its land territory. So at least there are constitutional provisions with that. We've also mounted a campaign that acknowledges Tuvalu's existence in the event that it loses most of its land territory.